Okay, this is the last in our series of videos about the CAF's carbon footprint calculator. To get here, you will have needed to set up an account. So if you're not sure how to do that, you need to go back to video 4, which you'll find on our website on the carbon calculator page, and that will show you how to set up an account. So this one here, I'm started off, I've set my account up and I've logged in, and I'm now in the calculator itself. So this is the kind of the main page. So the first thing you need to do here is you need to check which calculator you're using. So I'm on the residential calculator, but if I wanted to, I could switch to the business calculator here. If I wanted to use that one, and I can switch back again. So I'm going to show you how to use the residential one. The business one is very similar, and I'll just highlight the small changes, the small differences between the two at the end. So the first thing you need to do here is select which year your calculation relates to. So you've got a choice between 2020 up to 2024. You'll probably find that 2020 isn't very typical, but you know, that's the situation we're in. We've also created an experimental tab. So if you just wanted to play around, see what happened if you varied your results, you can do that here, and that won't affect the data that you've already saved for the other years. So I'm going to go and enter my 2020 data. Okay, the first tab then is the welcome tab. Now this is quite important, and what you need to do here is you need to say how many people are in your household. So I'm in a family of 4. Now what this allows you to do is it calculates the carbon footprint of your entire household, and then it will divide it by 4 to show you how much it is per person. So you need to bear that in mind when you're filling in some of the tabs, because you need to account for everybody in your household, not just yourself. Okay, we'll now move on to the next tab, which is your house. So this is all to do with your home energy. Now, what you have to do is input the different sources of energy. Now, if you're unsure about where to find the data or what format you need, you can refer back to video 3, which is about what to do before you get started, so about where to find the data. So electricity here, I'm going to input how much electricity I used last year, and it was very roughly 13,000 kilowatt hours. This factor here is a standard emissions factor, or this is the emissions factor related to the national grid. So if you just use your energy from the national grid, leave that as it is, even if you're on a renewable energy tariff, because it takes into account the amount of renewables that are currently feeding into the grid. You only want to change that if you are on maybe a private source, like a community energy wind farm or something like that. You can then enter your gas. So we have gas in our house, so that's very roughly 3,000 kilowatts. I could change that unit if I wanted to, if it was given to me in a different units. We don't have any of this other fuel, but we do have a wood burner, and we probably use about maybe half a ton of wood each year. So what I do then is click calculate and save footprint, and you'll see there that my entries are listed at the bottom. If any of them are wrong, I can just click remove and they disappear. Or if I've forgotten one, I can add another one in, click calculate and save, and it'll add it to the bottom. So that's the first page. We'll then move on to the transport ones. Okay, so we're now on the flights tab, and for this you have to enter the airports that you flew from and to. So let's just imagine we went from Manchester and we flew to Paris. Select the airports here. You can do via if you want, you can select the class that you flew, and then the number of trips. So if you only went once, you've already clicked return trip if it was a return trip, and that would be 1 trip. But you need to remember that this is for your whole family. So if it was me and I went with my family, I would put 4 into that box there. Calculate and save, and it appears at the bottom. Moving on to car, you put your car down in terms of mileage. So I'm going to put down, say, 5,000 miles. If you want, you can use kilometres. And the EU database is default, so you just need to start by selecting the year your car was manufactured. So I'm just going to randomly pick one here. 2010, let's go for an Audi, and then you just go on to select the model. And then it comes up with the amount of emissions from that particular car. Calculate and save, and it tells you there the emissions from your mileage from that car type. just before I go on, I just mention about electric cars. If you have a purely electric car, you don't need to enter it at all. Your electricity consumption, if you've got a charge point at home, your electricity consumption will be accounted for here within your electricity bills. If you are getting your electricity from a public charge point, then if you've got a record from your account that you used, you can just add that in to the your total home energy and account for that electricity there. Motorbikes then, this is simpler. You just enter your mileage, say 1,000 miles, and it's just small, medium or large motorbike. Calculate and save. Just to point out, on these 3 tabs here, you have a maximum amount that you can enter. So you can enter up to 2 motorbikes, up to 2 cars, and up to 3 flight itineraries. So if you happen to have more than that, for example, so you had in your household you had 3 cars, then what you'd need to do is just add your mileage from the 3rd car to one of the other cars, and maybe the most similar type of car to get the most accurate impression of your footprint. Okay, the next tab is then other fuels. So this is if, for instance, you have a boat or maybe a large petrol lawnmower, and you buy petrol or diesel separately from that, and even aviation fuel if you happen to have a plane. So you can enter that there in litres and again calculate and save. The final one is your bus and rail travel. So on this one, you need to enter the amount of miles you have travelled in each of these different types of forms of transport. So let's imagine over the course of a year I've taken several bus trips and maybe I've travelled 100 miles. So you'd have to make sure that you account for the return trip, and also you'd have to think about whether again you were travelling with your family, or whether your family or your household were taking separate trips. So imagine if that was my mileage, but every time I went on the bus my family went with me, that would be 400 miles. So that's the case for public transport. You need to account for everybody that travelled with you. That's the same for flights, but when it comes to cars, you just need to put in the mileage of the car itself, regardless of how many people were in the car at the time. Okay, let's look at waste now. So first of all, you need to select the waste type. So let's choose mixed recycling. You then choose a receptacle, and for mixed recycling we've only got one option of a 55-litre box, so we'll put that in. It says choose disposal method, but what it should say is frequency of collection, so let's say collected fortnightly. And then the fill level, so if it's completely full, let's put 100% full, and you click calculate and save footprint. Now it might be that that particular receptacle size, the 55-litre box, doesn't represent your particular district's recycling. You might have a box and a couple of bags, for instance. So if you want to reflect that, you just need to make slight adjustments. So we can put it in again, we'll select the box, collected fortnightly again, but say if it was a bag, it would only maybe be half as much. So let's put 50% full, calculate and save, and it adds it on as an extra waste amount here at the bottom. Moving into water, all you need to do is enter the amount of water you've consumed in cubic meters or litres. If you're not metered, you can use the average UK usage of 140 litres per person per day as a bit of a benchmark. So let's assume my household is this amount, 150,000. Calculate and save. We move on now to goods and services. So this is the long list of a wide range of things, stuff and services that you might buy during the course of the year. You can either enter it per year, per month or per week, whichever way is easiest for you to account for it. So I'll just fill in one for an example. So food and drink. What you select here is the type of diet that you have, because high meat diets have a much higher carbon content than vegan diets. So I'll go for a vegan here, and I think monthly would be easiest for me, or weekly I should say, for a family of 4, about £100 a week. Calculate and save. And you can see down here the range of different things that you can account for, that you consume in your lifestyle. Now, before I go on to the results tab, I'll quickly show you the differences with the business calculator. This is the business calculator here, and you can see that it looks almost identical. On the welcome page, instead of entering your number of people in your household, it's your number of employees. So we have 10 here. The building is the same as the house tab on the residential calculator, entering the amount of fuel of the different types. Just bear in mind that if you've got more than one building or one property within your business, you'll need to add up the totals before you enter them into the calculator. The only difference with flights is that you can enter up to 5 flight itineraries. Similarly, with cars and vans, you can enter up to 5, as you can with motorbikes. This next tab is slightly different. This is aimed at vehicle fuel, so you might, if you used a fuel card, it might be easier for you to enter your vehicle fuel consumption here rather than entering your mileage here. Or you might want to enter fuel that you use for other purposes. Bus and rail is exactly the same. Waste is slightly different, so this is more based around commercial waste collections. So first of all, you select your waste type. So if it was mixed recycling, we'd select mixed. Subtype would be your commercial and industrial waste. And disposal method would be recycled here. And then you'd enter the amount. Water is exactly the same. And goods and services is the same. The difference is just the context. This is goods and services that you consume as a business, either use or sell on to your customers. So for example, if you were a clothes shop, you could put in the value of your clothes stock in this box here. I'm going to go back to the residential calculator now to show you the results page. So we're finally at the results page, and you can see it gives you this nice pie chart at the top, which shows you how the different aspects of your lifestyle contribute to your carbon footprint. And you can see here that for mine, the biggest element is this yellow segment here, which is my home energy. Underneath, it shows you the total footprint for your household. And if you scroll down further, you can see this line here shows me how much that means, how much it equates to per person. So it's 2.14 tonnes per person in my household. That's represented by this foot here, and it compares it to the average UK carbon footprint. So mine's quite a lot smaller, and that's partly because I haven't entered all of my data, and also I hope it's a bit smaller anyway. Just to note here that this UK average is 6.5 metric tonnes. You may have seen higher figures, 13 tonnes is another figure, and it really comes down to what's included in that calculation. What else you can do on this results page is download a report which will show you your results. You don't necessarily have to, because they are saved on the server anyway, so you won't lose them. You can also click on here. This is a link back to the CAF's website, where we have loads of advice on how to reduce your carbon footprint in relation to your home energy, your lifestyle, and also for businesses. Finally, you have an option to offset your carbon footprint. Now, this is totally up to you whether or not you want to do this. This link takes you through to the programme that is run by our developer, Carbon Footprint Limited, who produces this calculator for us. CAFs have a policy on offsetting, and you can find it on our website, and it's very much that carbon reduction should be the first priority, and then offsetting should only be for those emissions that you absolutely can't reduce. Also bear in mind, when you're choosing a programme, just check the quality of the offsets. So that's it from me. I hope you enjoy using the calculator and that it helps you to target your carbon reduction. Thanks very much for listening.